So welcome everyone. Really nice to see you all this morning. You've made such the right choice. I hope you've had your emergency coffee. I literally had to run out and have an emergency coffee this morning. I was up late last night writing poetry, but we've all been there. You know, it's not a big deal. Everyone's up late writing poetry nowadays. So we're going to start this morning by just doing a short meditation just straight away, just to immediately arrive, recover from having got up in my case. So if you can, sit astride the cushions. That's best. And we're just going to do a short meditation. Welcome, by the way, everyone online. We're just going to do a short meditation. At the end of that meditation, I'm going to read you a poem. Don't worry, you're quite safe. It's not one of mine. So. Okay, so when you're ready, closing your eyes. And as soon as you've closed your eyes, see if you can bring your awareness into your body. So the way to start to quieten down our chattering mind is not to sort of tell ourselves to stop thinking. That just makes matters worse. The only way that really helps is to tune in to the physical sensations of your body. So noticing particularly the weight of your body on the cushions or the chair. Really feeling the pressure of support from the cushions or the chair. And see if you can really feel your feet on the ground and your knees on the ground if you're sitting on the floor. And then remember, these are not mental images, they're not thoughts. They're not a picture of your knees or your feet or your backside on the cushions. You're trying to get as close as you can to your actual sensations. And see if you can soften your face, especially your brow and your eyes and your jaw. See if you can let go of your shoulders. We're often gripping on with our shoulders without noticing it. So see if you can just let go of that. And see if you can tell if you're gripping with your belly. Again, we're often doing that without noticing it. And see if you can just soften that. Just imagine the belly softening, dropping down. So that as we're sitting here, the whole system, the body, the mind, your emotional sense, is all calming down, quietening down. And the key to that sense is really just this sense of your weight, and the weight dropping down through the floor. So you can just have this sense that your weight is dropping down through the floor into the ground beneath you. So having a sense of your body, your whole body sitting here. And then staying in touch with the body, just see if you can open up to the sounds around you. So we think of the sounds as being outside of us, but that's not in our direct experience, that's just an idea. It's a concept. So just see if you can feel the body, the weight of the body, resting down. And you can just open up to the sounds around you. They're part of your experience, just as your body is. So there's your weight, pressure of your body on the cushions. And your open to the sounds around you in the room and outside the room. And all of that, the body sensations, the sounds, they're all directly part of your experience. You don't need to think which aspect is inside or outside. The Dawn Chorus. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss, say the psychologists and the poets too. We yearn for that reality in this. There is another world resides in this, amidst the muddy fields, a pool of blue. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. If we could once achieve a synthesis of the archaic and the entirely new, we yearn for that reality in this. But wide awake, clear-eyed with cowardice, the flaming seraphim we find untrue. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. Listening heartbroken to the dawn chorus, clutching the certainty that once we flew, we yearn for that reality in this. Awaiting still our metamorphosis, we hoard the fragments of what once we knew. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. We yearn for that reality in this. So when you're ready, opening your eyes and coming out of the meditation. Okay, just sit as comfortably as you can. Don't carry on sitting on your knees. You'll need your knees for later. So this is the third week of our meditation challenge. Who's been here so far? Hands up. That's very good. That's great. And who's new today? Anyone new today? Great. Welcome to you particularly. So we've been in this challenge. I'm really exploring four principles of meditation. Yeah, and I'm linking these four principles of meditation with what's called the four mind turnings, or the four great reminders in Buddhism. And with a parable, which is actually, I was thinking this morning, a bit too much. Anyway, there we go. Want me and my bright ideas? So for the first week we explored the principle of relaxation. 2 quick reminders from that. You can watch me, of course, on YouTube, where I look gorgeous. That's a joke. So the 2 things to remember very briefly about relaxation is firstly that you're trying to relax in relationship to. You can't will yourself to relax. Yeah? So relaxation isn't an effort of will. So if you think it is, you'll just get disappointed with yourself. It's not something you can will into being. Actually, it's amazing how little you can will into being. You can create the conditions for things, but you can't will them. For instance, you can create the conditions for a good time, but you can't necessarily have one. Yeah? That's why people drink so much. You know? We need to relax in relationship to things. So we need to relax in relationship to our thoughts. In other words, not take our thoughts so seriously in a particular sort of way. Need to relax in relationship to our body, not take our discomfort so seriously in a certain sort of way. Yeah? And relax in relationship to what we think we want and what we feel we need. We're trying to sort of hang loose to ourselves a bit. That starts to cultivate relaxation. Yeah? But yes, you can't will yourself to relax. And that's important because people think they can, and then weirdly, if you're not careful, you create more tension by trying to make yourself relax and think that you should be able to and that everybody else can. You just can't will it. Yeah? You can create the conditions for it. The best conditions for it that I'm aware of is going on retreat. Because mostly the reason we can't relax is because we're hyper-stimulated by being on our phones all the time, by drinking too much coffee, in my case, etc., etc. You need to go on retreat. If you haven't been on retreat yet, go book today. If you have, book today. I'm going on a retreat again soon. How you live without retreats, I really don't know. So that's the first principle of relaxation. The second last week was the principle of love, you could say, which sounds a bit... no, it doesn't matter what it sounds. The thing I was really emphasizing last week was that in order to relax, you need to feel safe. I don't mean safe in the modern silly sense. I mean safe in the sense that particularly that you are loved, yeah, and that you feel loved. When children feel relaxed because they just, they know that they're loved, yeah. So if you're holding a child, they throw themselves onto the floor because they know you will catch them. It has a particular effect on you to feel loved, to feel valued. Yeah, and that's very important. All human beings need that, including human beings who think they don't. And I don't mean it in a sort of soppy sense. I mean it more. Anyway, look at the YouTube thing. I can't go through it all again. But yeah, so that was last week's. Basically, to get anywhere in meditation, in fact, to get anywhere in life, you need to be able to cultivate relaxation, which creates a sense of unity of your body, your heart, and your mind. That's what relaxation does. When you feel relaxed, you feel kind of unified, rather than like this head on a stick, which we so often feel, or increasingly a screen on a stick, presumably a selfie stick. So when you relax, you feel unified with your body. But actually what really deepens that sense of unification is a sense of love. Yeah? As soon as you feel that, it's very difficult to characterize because love sounds too romantic. But as soon as you feel that you're valued, appreciated for who you are, that the fact that people are aware of you, you instinctively are able to relax. It's very, very difficult to relax if you feel... But you can't relax if you feel threatened. And most of us now are going around our life with our threat system wired right the way up. So we're hyper alert to threats. Yeah? And if you're alert to threats in that way, you will see them, you will notice them, and you'll be highly sensitive to them, and then you won't be able to relax even more. Yeah? So we've somehow got to find a way of turning off our threat system, or at least be able to calm it right the way down. Otherwise, we're hyper on alert all the time, and that just leads to more and more misunderstanding between people, more and more polarization, more and more indignation, and so on. Yeah. So we need to find a way in which we feel loved, and we'll come on to, so that we can love others, because that's really where we're trying to go with everything in Buddhist meditation, is so you'll become a force of good for the world. But yeah, we need to find a way so we can feel loved, and we need to imagine that, and that's really taking us on to this week's theme, which is the theme of imagination. That's why I've read a poem there at the start, and I'll read it again at the end. Mostly what we need to cultivate is our great human gift is actually our imagination. Imagination is, I'll try and say more about it in the second half, but imagination is more like a kind of unified human faculty. Again, all of these terms now, they're so misunderstood. So what a lot of people think is imagination is really fantasy. The most obvious example, the sort of archetypical example of fantasy is pornography, where the whole thing is a sort of fantasy. Fantasy is to do with getting what you think you want. Yeah? Imagination is to do with being open to new modes of being, primarily. Yeah? Imagination is embodied rather than fragmented, like fantasy. Fantasy is like a head thing, like a head trip, really. Highly cognitive, actually. Usually overdone. Imagination is to do with this unification. It's your whole experience, really. But I want to say more about imagination in the second half. Just to give you a sort of advert for next week's theme, I then want to take us to wisdom, the perspective of wisdom. Because really that is the Buddhist path. You start with awareness, relaxation, you move to love and generosity, especially. You then move from because of feeling more unified through love and generosity, you're able to imagine in a unified, intrinsic kind of way, rather than a splintered, fragmented, distorted kind of way, because it's coming from your whole experience. And then because you can do that, you can start to cultivate wisdom. In other words, Buddhism would say you can start to see things as they really are. And things as they really are beyond language, they're beyond time and space, they're beyond inside and outside, they're beyond all ways of telling, as the Buddha said. Yeah? So that's the reason why I've been doing these principles, is to try and follow in a very, very simplified and made small way of talking about the whole path. Yeah? Going from relaxation to love to imagination to wisdom. But I've also, as I say, been focusing on this this parable, the jewel in the garment. It's sometimes called the jewel in the cloak, which is from the White Lotus Sutra, which we know, as I said, from the Chinese. It's one of the great Buddhist sutras, very, very famous sutra across the world. And the great part of it, I believe personally, is these parables which are told during this sutta. And the parable is that, two friends are together. One of the friends gets drunk. He falls asleep. Whilst he's asleep, his other friend ties a jewel into his garment, so that he can never be in want. And then that friend leaves, and the other friend isn't aware of the jewel in his cloak, in his garment. So he goes off in the world, just tries to earn his living, and just goes from poverty to want. And then, of course, eventually in the parable, he meets his friend again, who says, "But I sewed this jewel into your coat. What, did you not notice? Did you not know that?" Yeah. So that's the parable I've been exploring. So the metaphor here is, that there is something on your person of infinite value. It's actually here with you now. That's why parables are so good, is because they work in lots of different ways at the same time. But the basic Buddhist view is that right here and now there is something infinitely valuable right on your person, but you don't know it. You've been asleep, which I was thinking is your natural sort of egotism. I was talking to Jayajata about Lucy, his young toddler, and when he tries to get Lucy to go downstairs, she says, "Oh, hang on, I need some stuff. I need a hairbrush. What do I need?" In other words, she's got these children, even tiny toddlers have a very strong sense of, I need to make decisions here. We can't just be going downstairs. I remember once picking up Alex from nursery school, and Gary, her father, he was exhausted and he had to go and have a sleep. So I took Alex to the playground, and she said to me, "Why is Maitreyabandhu? Why isn't Daddy not coming?" I said, "Well," he said, "I think he's having a sleep." I said, "Why is he having a sleep?" I said, "Well, he's had a busy day." And she said, "I've had a busy day." It was like, we've all had busy days. We've all had busy days. It's very funny. And I think that's what the metaphor of sleep is, that you come into the world already, it's called an atmaklesha traditionally, you come in with a belief that you exist as a separately real existing being, a self, that needs to control the world around you. Yeah, that it's natural to us all. That's what we come into life with. And Buddhism says that's a sleep. It's not reality. It's a kind of sleep. It's even a kind of sleep walking, sleep talking. Yeah? But the character in the parable is also drunk. And as I said last week, getting drunk is something you need to do. It's a willed thing. Yeah? So we get drunk when we do things that actually make our situation worse. So we're already asleep. We really believe that we're a separate individual being in a world that's separate to us, and that we need to protect ourselves from threats from that world, and we need to get things that we want from that world. We are born with that belief. Yeah, it's not actually the case. It's not how things really are. In fact, it's nothing remotely like that. Yeah, but it's not our fault, as it were. It's not our responsibility. Even we're just born into that. That's what being human means. But we've nearly always, in fact, most of the time, make it worse by getting drunk. We're not just asleep, we then get drunk. So we get drunk, we make it worse by hating things that threaten us. And hating, of course, people that threaten us. And hating groups of people that we think threaten us. Hating your parents, hating the boss, whatever. We get into some kind of aversion. And to see how that makes it worse. Yeah? Or we get into wanting things from outside of us to make us feel more real. We yearn for things, we crave for things, we hanker for things, and again that makes it worse. Yeah? We've already got the wrong premise, and we're driven into behaviour that only makes that premise worse. Yeah? And then we get anxious about things, and that makes things worse. We get sort of depressive and kind of, I can't be bothered about things. We all get into passivity, lack of initiative, lack of courage. One of the things been feeling more and more as I've got older is just how much of my life has been to do with my own timidity, really. I've just not done things out of timidity, not because, not for moral reasons, just because I was timid. Yeah. And we make things worse by doubting that there's any real value in all of this. Yeah? So those are what's called in Buddhism the 5 hindrances. So we're asleep, and that's natural, but we then make this premise that we're living from, that we're a separate being in a separate world, even though if you look at science it absolutely can't be like that. We make that premise worse by our behaviour, yeah? By what we do, and that is what Buddhism means by getting drunk. We have to go out and get drunk. It doesn't just happen to us. So this week's mind turning is about the law of karma. Yeah? We've sort of glossed that as actions do matter. Yeah, actions do matter. But that's really our translation of what's called the law of karma. Law of karma is mostly misunderstood. Karma just means action. Yeah? The law of karma means your actions have consequences. And there's lots I could say about that, but I want to make sure we meditate again in a moment. But the thing I want to particularly focus on is that Buddhism thinks of your thoughts and your mind, as your thoughts especially, as being an action. Yeah. So it's saying that Buddhism is saying what you think matters, what you say matters, and what you do matters. Yeah, it really matters. It actually is creating you. In the myth, in this parable, it's that that's getting you drunk. And when you're drunk, you're not safe to be around. It's when you're drunk that you'll get into a fight. It's when you're drunk that you'll take offence at something. It's when you're drunk that you say things that you don't mean and should never have said and will regret. It's when you're drunk, that you grab hold of somebody in the wrong way. You do all sorts of bad things when you're drunk. You don't really need me to talk you through this, do you? Okay, I get you. It could also be drugs first, just to make sure we're update. Could be your ayahuasca trip, or your MDFA, or whatever it's called. I can never get those right. I just used to smoke dope, and it made my knees hurt. It was the main thing. I've never had anybody else report that. That's amazing. And did you see what Buddhism is trying to say is that it's not like a moralist point of view where it's saying behave, be good, as E.T. said. It's not in other words, it's not saying be good because you should be good because goodness is good and let's be good and it's nicer if we're good, which is often the sort of argument that's used, isn't it? That let's just be good because it's good to be good. Yeah. Buddhism is saying that getting drunk is really not in your interest because you have got on your person something of infinite wealth. And the more drunk you get, the more you won't notice that. The more you'll think that you're poor. The more you'll react to your poverty by getting even more drunk because you can't face it. Yeah? Buddhism is saying, look, there is something infinitely valuable about being human, basically. Infinitely valuable, not just valuable, but infinitely valuable about being human. And it's on your person now. And if you did but know it, you'd immediately sober up, you'd immediately wake up, if you did but know it. Now, because it's a parable, it places things in a kind of drama that it's not like in life. Because in reality, every time you get even the slightest inkling of the jewel, you feel like that's what I want to live for and live with all of my life. Yeah. I don't know whether you've seen this film, One Life. Has anyone seen One Life? Yeah. It's a wonderful film. And, about this man who saved, I think, 669 people in the Holocaust, during the Holocaust. And there's the reason it's such a deeply moral film because he just goes to Czechoslovakia, sees what's happening, and knows he has to act. And somebody even says, why are you doing this? He says, I saw what I saw, and I couldn't unsee it. Yeah. Now, when you start to act genuinely for the good, which is nothing remotely like giving your opinion on Facebook, which some of my dear friends are doing. Anyway, when you do something genuinely for the good, which usually means really putting yourself out for somebody, in this case, people risking their lives for people, when you touch that, it feels of infinite value. You feel like you could live that more and more. I've had times in my life where, particularly on retreat, where I've been very much in touch with that. And energy begets energy. Love begets love. Creativity begets creativity. Instead of crashing between feeling creative and then being a couch potato, or feeling loving and then feeling aversive and even hateful, as I say, creativity begets creativity, love begets love. You feel it to be of infinite wealth. Yeah? And this parable is saying that can develop to such a point as you feel it all the time. That your mind, your behaviour, your thoughts are infinitely wealthy. Yeah? And it's because of that you could really do with sobering up. Yeah? You really need to. Buddhism is saying you are making do with being this poverty-stricken, muddy person, messed up with all these things that really aren't in your interest. When you die, you won't be worrying about how anxious you were or timid or aversive. What will show is how much you've loved, how much you've been a force for good in the world. That's what will matter, and that's what will weigh in the scales of your soul, so to speak. Yeah. So This mind turning is about reminding yourself that there is something infinite about you, about consciousness itself, that's valuable, and that the more that we get drunk, the further we get away from it. And it's weird because, like getting drunk, it's a wonderful metaphor, because when you're drunk, you think, actually, now I've had 3 whiskies or how many snorts of cocaine. Do you snort cocaine? It's like that. I've seen it in films. I may as well. I had a friend who was in that. They had the F it button where you just think, I may as well just, I don't know, smoke as well and drink as well and have casual sex. So you just got to break all bounds, don't you, very, very easily. Weirdly, the more negative you get, the more it begets negativity. You think, I may as well just, sod it. I may as well just go the whole hog, And everybody's done that, haven't they? Anyway, I mean, of course, for most of it, it's a long time ago. Not this morning. Okay, so let's meditate a little bit more, and then we'll have some tea, and then I'll say more about imagination in a second. Again, as soon as you've closed your eyes, bring in your attention into your body. And your body isn't a thought, it's not an idea. It's whatever you can feel just now, the weight of your body on the cushions. And you can just sort of lightly imagine that you're now just relaxing, that you can just relax. And you can just imagine that. And when you relax, it's a real relief. You feel like emotionally relieved. So you can just imagine that. But here you are, and it's just like, I don't know, sitting in front of the telly with a fire or something. You can just sort of let go and relax. There's nothing to do. Nothing to sort of prove or achieve. So just having this sort of simple sense that your whole experience is calming down, quietening down. Your mind is softening and opening up and quietening down. And your body is becoming heavy and warm. You can soften your belly. You can relax your legs. Just follow a few breaths in and out. Follow the whole breath coming in, the whole breath going out. And perhaps particularly notice the out-breath, because the out-breath has this sort of calming effect on your whole body. You don't need to breathe in a particular way, you just notice the breath coming in. See if you can follow the whole breath going out. The Dawn Chorus. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss, say the psychologists and poets too. We yearn for that reality in this. There is another world resides in this, amidst the muddy fields, a pool of blue. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. If we could once achieve a synthesis of the archaic and the entirely new, we yearn for that reality in this. But wide awake, clear-eyed with cowardice, the flaming seraphim we find untrue. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. Listening heartbroken to the dawn chorus, clutching the certainty that once we flew, we yearn for that reality in this. Awaiting still our metamorphosis, we hoard the fragments of what once we knew. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. We yearn for that reality in this. Okay, so we'll go and have a cup of tea again. Okay, so let's start again. So if you're sitting down already, get yourself into meditation posture. Let's make sure we can start again. So as soon as you're sitting in your meditation posture, closing your eyes. Those of you at home, I hope you're back from your tea break. So as soon as you're ready, even though people are still coming in, that's fine. Once again, just come back to this direct sense of your body. And even those of you coming in just now, you can already tune into your body as you're moving into the room. You don't need to sort of think of the meditation as starting when you literally sit down. Yeah, so closing your eyes. And just notice how you are just now. And I don't mean asking yourself sort of emotive questions. How you are is how you're feeling in your body. That's how you are. Yeah. So you don't need to sort of analyze it. You just need to open up to how you're feeling in the body just now. Because your body and your mind are unified. So how you're feeling in your body just now is how you're feeling. And you might be feeling okay just now, or not okay, or you might be feeling kind of nothing very much. Often enough that's more true, that we're not really feeling anything particularly. But whatever you're feeling, even an absence of feeling, you can open up to that. You can open up to feeling your body. And you can help yourself begin to relax by just noticing the weight of your body on the cushions, on the floor, on the chair. And see if you can notice that in a very simple, direct way, not a thought, not an idea, not a mental image, just the actual sensation of your weight. And again, just see if you can soften your belly. Just imagine your belly softening so that more and more of your weight can just drop down through the cushion, through the chair. So your body feels heavy on the floor. You can soften your belly. Just having this sense that you're calming down. Just almost this sense that you're sitting in this temple, which is what this is really, and that's a place of peace and ease, and you can be yourself. There's nothing to defend against. So in a temple you can just relax. Outside on the pavement there are all these people rushing around in cars and buses and so on the pavement. But you're just sitting quietly here. And nowadays that's such a countercultural thing to do. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes and coming out of your meditating posture. Okay, so just sit comfortably, or as comfortably as you can. Yeah. So I want to say a bit more about imagination. Really, this is sort of a whistle-stop tour, so there's so much more to say. But yeah, I want to say a bit more about imagination. And then, as I said, next week I want to try to begin to explore wisdom a bit more, because all Buddhist practice is really leading towards wisdom, which is a seeing of things as they really are, not as we believe them to be. And because one sees things as they really are, you become in that moment a force of compassion in the world. And the world particularly needs compassion just now, but at all times really. So my third principle is this principle of imagination. So in the West, this comes from the Romantic poet Coleridge. He talked, actually, he speaks very well about it. He talks about what he called the imaginal faculty. Yeah? So he thought of imagination as a faculty, like your eyesight, yeah, or it's a faculty that human beings have. His thinking about it is also a reaction to the rationalism and the sort of headiness that preceded it. That the idea that everything could just be reasoned. Yeah? He was trying to remind people of a faculty that they can explore and discover. Yeah? And actually, it's very strangely like what Buddhism is trying to teach, but in a very different language. Yeah? So if we think of this imaginal faculty, as again, you have to sort of be able to distinguish it from fantasy. Fantasy basically is wish fulfillment. You fantasize about sleeping with somebody beautiful, or you fantasize about winning the pools. The pools anymore? Anyway, whatever it is. It's not the pools, is it? Lotto? Yeah, thank you. I'm so contemporary. Basically you fantasize about things that you think will, from your state of mind now, you think will make you feel happy and fulfilled. Yeah, that's what you do. Of course, nearly always mostly fantasy doesn't work. They've even done, sort of psychometric studies on people like that. Like if there's a famous study of a woman who was, diagnosed as mildly depressed. She then won, £6 million or £6 billion or whatever, and in 6 months' time, she was back to being mildly depressed again, just with better outfits. Which weirdly doesn't make that much difference. Probably Cuban heels, I'd imagine. Does anyone remember that? Somebody does. So what that's getting at is human beings habituate very, very easily. Yeah. So even if you were suddenly infinitely, very, very wealthy, not infinitely wealthy, which of course is a metaphor, not a reality, because there's no such thing as infinite wealth. But if you became very wealthy, you would habituate to it. Most things you habituate to within 6 months. Sorry. So if you go and move to somewhere sunny, 6 months you're pretty much back where you are now, because you get used to it, and therefore it doesn't show up anymore. Therefore it doesn't change your mind. Yeah. Weirdly, it's also true of things like, very difficult things. So if you have a very difficult experience, all things being equal, you will habituate to it within 6 months and get back to pretty much where you are now. Yeah. So do you see how that really tells us that we can't get it from outside? We can't get the happiness, the fulfillment, the joy that we want from it. We can't buy it in. It's very tragic. When you meet people who are very wealthy, I've met one or two, it's very tragic, because you really think you can buy it in, and what it does is it makes you more and more angry. A friend of mine went to this very posh restaurant with someone that was very wealthy, and this guy was just getting angry about the service, about the quality, because he's paid all this money. It just makes you angry, weirdly. Yeah, and it does very little in terms of your mental state, to improve your mental state. Apparently, the richest people in America, who are fabulously wealthy beyond our dreams, are only marginally happier than the average American. Yeah? So it does hardly anything. Where money really helps is going from the poverty line to just above it. That has a massive effect on how you feel about yourself. Yeah? That's really why anyone with money should be giving it. We should all be just giving mostly. Because, if you're at the poverty line, if you lift you a bit above that, it has a massive effect on you. After that, if you can now afford to go to the Mandela Cafe after this and have some vegan, locally sourced jobby, with oat milk, obviously. Any more money you have after that will have almost no effect on your happiness. Yeah, really won't. So, if you want to flourish your life, you need to. It's absolutely urgent, as it were, to work with your mind, because otherwise you just habituate to whatever you get. Yeah. So I've been sort of trying to teach us a little path to that. That first of all, we need to cultivate relaxation. We then need to cultivate much, much more emotional positivity. Firstly, feeling loved, and then particularly this sense of generosity. And that's really crucial. It protects your mind. If you don't do that second stage, you'll tend to, inevitably, for all kinds of good evolutionary reasons, you'll tend to notice anything that threatens you. And most of those threats will be social. You'll tend to easily feel resentful, you'll easily feel embittered, you can feel overlooked, because your mind will naturally tend to go on what is a problem, you see what I mean? And actually that's not in your interest. It's for good evolutionary reasons, but it's not in your interest. So the only way to protect yourself from that is to become more and more positive, is to consciously, and particularly through meditation, but through the whole of a spiritual life, do everything you can in thought, word and deed to become someone who feels loved, to become someone who other people are intrinsically pleased to see. If you've ever had that experience, and I luckily have had that, where people are just pleased to see you, you can never imitate it. When people are just pleased to see you because it's you, they're not trying to they're not thinking, okay, let's be nice. They're a bit of a nightmare, so I better try, hi! Great to see you! with that vegan smile, as I sometimes call it. Great to see you. With every value in being a vegan, of course. But to be that person where people are really genuinely pleased to see you, where someone will turn to you if they're in difficulty, that's because you have become a source of good to some degree. Yeah, you have become someone who people want around intrinsically, not for some sort of secondary reason that, I don't know, that you're attractive or that you've got money or that you're kind of useful in this way or that way. People just want you around. I've got friends here at the Buddhist Centre here this morning who I just really like the fact that they're around. I just always pleased to see them. And that's really what you want. That will give you much more wealth, in turn, psychically speaking, than any kind of money will. But then you need to find a way of discovering this imaginal faculty. So as I say, it's not fantasy, it's not to do with wish fulfillment, which won't work. You can try if you want to, but it won't work. Imagination is an integral sense, it's a full sense. So there's various elements to imagination that are crucial. So first of all, it's an embodied sense, it's not a fractured, split-off sense. Yeah. What fantasy is just a bit of your mind that wants stuff, which is like a fractured sense. And of course, big tech is trying to click onto your fantasy and promise you things that will meet those desires, which of course it never can. Yeah. So imagination, the imaginal faculty, is embodied. So you need to first of all start with body. Yeah? It's an embodied sense. It's not a head sense. Secondly, it has the nature of play. Yeah, it's a playful sense. Now, play is one of the most serious things human beings do. Very, very important play. Playing in the right way. I don't mean game playing, all those sort of silly things that we can slip into, but genuine play. You see children play, and you can see how much it flourishes them. And if you say, "Are you having a good time?" they're like, "Duh." It's very interesting when you talk with children, because you can say you're having a good time, and you can see them being confused by the question, because they're absorbed in their games and loving it. You can see them, I remember with the girls and they were having a bath together, and Alex said to me, "Why don't you go and listen to your music?" Because they just wanted to play and talk and fantasize. And me being around was like a boring adulty person that was just spoiling it. So she told me to go and listen to my music. But I do you remember that sense where you just want to do that thing where you go, and then guess what? But you don't want some boring adult to be going, "That doesn't seem to be quite true." I don't think you were picked up by a UFO at all. You want them out of the way. So play is our deep imaginative capacity. And in fact, it's a shame this word imagination. It sounds so cravatty, doesn't it? Sounds like you've been at university and have studied Latin. It might be better to just talk in terms of play. Yeah? But play in that intrinsic sense that children have, and if you're not careful, easily lose. Play in that sort of incredibly imaginative sense. Wonderful. When you see children's imaginations, it's so alive. I remember, again, with Alex, turning the light off and saying, "Don't turn the light off because I see monsters in the dark." Not I think I do, not like it's as if I do. I just do. So leave the light on. We're all born with that as well. We're born with this sleep of thinking that we really exist as a separate being. But we're also born with play, with imagination, with, like Alex dressing up as I remember having a princess phase, where you're a princess or a prince, and then you're fighting, and you've got that intrinsically. Nobody teaches you that. And it's absolutely crucial to human flourishing. And of course, it's easily substituted for imagination, especially as you get older. It's part of that jewel is imagination. So play is part of it. So when you're meditating, you need to bring in the imagination. So the imagination is going to be embodied and physical, and it's going to be playful, not in this, as I say, game-playing sense, but in this sense of let's imagine in that childlike way. Yeah. And then the last thing to say about imagination is that it has the possibility of assent. When I was once giving a talk about imagination in Spain, they were translating me, and they said that imagination is ascent, like perfume, but ascent, you're going up. So imagination has within it, quite naturally and without you doing it, the possibility of ascent. In fact, it can ascend to levels that normally we cordon off and call religious. Yeah? What we've got now is this weird, sort of an understandable, sort of almost phobic response to religion. But religion, it really is the heights of play. It's the heights of imagination. Yeah? It goes all the way up to full-out visionary experiences and transforming intuitions, which I'll talk about more next week. I remember having a visionary experience in this room not long after I was ordained. Their imagination at its deepest and richest, and it sort of suddenly can take off. Yeah, it did when you were a child. It just you didn't realise that it could keep going up. What we've done is we've turned imagination into something secular, and we put one of those police cordons across it so we don't cross into religion. But actually, you just don't know how far imagination can go. Yeah. So we're going to do another meditation just now, and I want to see if we can just imagine. Now, the one thing I really want to emphasise before we do it is that one of the reasons why we don't quite understand imagination is because we don't really believe in it, actually, weirdly. We think it is just fantasy. People say, oh, that's just your imagination. If you did that as a child, it would destroy all your games. You don't need someone to say that's just your imagination. If you go and see a film and at the end of it someone says, actually, you know that, they're just pretending. You know they're pretending, but you want to be deeply moved. You don't need to know, that somebody else was cast originally and so forth. You want to be deeply moved, yeah? So one of the things that happens when you try and be imaginative, you overdo it. You think you need to really do it, and it's more playful than that. It's really quite light, yeah? So as we go through this meditation, have this sense that you don't mean it that much. You're just playing, yeah? Okay, so let's have a go at that. And at the end I'm going to read another poem. So when you're ready, closing your eyes. And again we come back to the body. That's always where we start. Come back to the weight of your body on the cushions. Just having this sort of light sense that as you're sitting here, your whole system is calming down. Just as if you're surrounded by this busy, frenetic world, but you're just calming down and sitting quietly and feeling okay. And then just imaginatively opening up to a sense of feeling loved and valued. And that can be just an imaginative sense, or it can be bringing people to mind that you know would be pleased to see you. And then just imagining that as you sit here, you feel just really good. You feel happy. You're in touch with your body. You feel loved and valued. So much so that it's almost as if your heart is shining and you're sort of radiating love all around you. You just want the best for everyone around you. People in the room, people outside the room, the people you're going to be meeting next. You're in such a good place just now that you just want them to all feel like that. And just imagine that as best as you can. And just play with that for a bit. Antarctica. I am just going outside, and maybe some time. The others nod, pretending not to know. At the heart of the ridiculous, the sublime. He leaves them reading and begins to climb, goading his ghost into the howling snow. He is just going outside, and maybe some time. The tent recedes beneath its crust of grime, and frostbite is replaced by vertigo at the heart of the ridiculous, the sublime. Need we consider it some sort of crime, this numb self-sacrifice of the weakest? No. He is just going outside, and maybe some time, in fact, forever. Solitary ensign, though the night yields no glimmer, there will glow at the heart of the ridiculous, the sublime. He takes leave of the earthly pantomime, quietly, knowing it is time to go. I am just going outside, and maybe some time. At the heart of the ridiculous, the sublime. Okay, so that's pretty much all we've got time for just now. Do come back next week, next Saturday morning. We'll explore wisdom. And yeah, what I'd particularly suggest is you join me on this Life Before Attention course. It starts on February for the 18th for 8 weeks. It's in person and online. As it happens, we're also twinning with a centre in New York, in Berlin and Barcelona as well. In fact, I'm leading week 1 in London and in Berlin. How groovy is that? Next year, I want to go to New York. We've in these 4 sessions, there's not that much we can really go into. And really what we need to do is say, okay, here's what we're going to do this week. Why don't you try that out and come back next week and tell me how it went? And that's what we'll be doing on the course. We'll be trying to cultivate mindfulness in our day-to-day life, and then coming back each week and saying, okay, how did that go? And then taking another step, so that we really integrate what we're trying to do in this room with our whole life, not just what we do here at the Buddhist Centre. So yeah, I'd really recommend that you come and join me on that course.
That's the 13th.
13th. What did I say?
18th.
Did I? I'm never very good with numbers. Yes, don't believe any number I ever say. I'm famously bad at it. Okay, let's leave it there. Perhaps the last 2 rows, if you could put your cushions and mats at the side, the rest of us can just leave them there. But hopefully see you next week. Yeah.
Thank you.